Now, working with props is great, but I also would want to show you how the structuring that is coming from the ES6 would really help us. Now, for those of you who know the structuring, this is going to be a breeze. And for those of you who are not familiar, I'm going to go over the basics. However, again, I'm going to show my shameless plug where you can go and find out everything about the structuring in my YouTube channel playlist ES6. So let's go back and let's look at the problem. So now, as you can see, we're passing the arguments. So we have name, developer, and let's say in this case, age. Now, what if we would start adding these arguments? So let's say over here, we're going to write company, and let's say that this is going to be the Apple. Now, the issue eventually is that if we're going to have way too many props or arguments, then this is just going to get annoying. The idea would be is keeping all our information somewhere separate so we can access the information if we want, but it's not clogging up the code that we're writing. Otherwise, as you can see, this gets really messy really fast. So what we would want is within the people, let's create an array. And again, this is going to be above the return. This is just going to be a regular, straight up the JavaScript array. So we're going to say const, and let's name our array. Very simple. Let's just say that this is going to be friends. And since this is going to be an array, we obviously need square brackets. However, within the array, the items are going to be objects themselves. So we're going to write over here name. And again, we're going to rewrite a little bit. We're going to say John. Then the second key value pair is going to be the job. And we're just going to say that he's going to be developer. Then after that, let's write his age. And the age is going to be, I don't know, 21 or 23. We can do it like this. And then we need to also write company. Now, if you want to add more values, you can obviously write them. And again, the case is just to show you is that you will going to be passing more props than just, let's say, 1 or 2. In some cases, there's going to be 9 of them. In some cases, it's going to be 4. It doesn't really matter, but there has to be a better way how to access them. And this is where really the ES6, the new syntax, come to the rescue. So let me just copy and paste this. And this is going to be 4 of them. Or, you know what, no, we have 3 of them. Let's just leave 3. 3 is going to be fine. Then let's change these values. So let me delete John. Let's write again that this would be Bob. Then after that, we're going to have Susie. So developer, designer. So he's going to be designer and she's going to be, I don't know, artist. Let's change the ages of 22, 21, Apple, Facebook, and Twitter. So those are the 3 companies that the friends are going to be working with. So Facebook, and let's write over here Twitter. And if we think about it, what would be the best way how to access this? Well, we have the person, correct? And each of the person represents one of the friends in our array. And we also have an option of passing the arguments. But for now, we're just passing the key value pairs. So what if we would change it over here? What if we would write like this? What are we going to say person? So this would be our person. And this person is going to be equal not to just a simple string in our case. We're going to use the curly braces that we know we can use in our return because it is what? It is JavaScript. And we can say friends, since this is a name of our array, and we can access this. Now, how do we access the array? I'm sorry, this was a mistake. It wasn't a dot. We know that to access the first item in an array, we can just say 0. So this would be an index of 0. So now instead of passing them one by one, we just pass the whole object. And what we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing with the rest of them. So again, let me delete this. And again, the idea is to make our code more concise. So we can see better, we can see what's happening, people can understand better what's happening. And again, we're going to use friends. Now in this case, this is going to be Bob, so he's going to be number 1. And then last but not least, we're going to use the same thing with a Susie. So let me delete the job. I'm sorry, the name and the job, and let's write that she's going to be friends too. Now, again, the question right now is what we're accessing with the props. And the good news is that we're console logging. So here the issue is that it says that job is developer. And this is where we messed up because this obviously is an object. So my bad. Let me go back and notice the nice thing about that right away. It really tells us where is the issue. So we don't need to look around everywhere. We know that it's right away the developer server is saying, hey, listen, there's something wrong with your syntax. And as you can see, I made the same mistake with a company. So let me just clean this up. And now everything should be working. Because again, this was a key value pair and I made a mistake. So now the good news is that we have our props. Now, what is in the props object though? Notice we have all the same objects since we're console logging the props. This is still the same person. But notice the difference here. The actual person, the object, is sitting already within the props object. So the key is the person, and then the value is the object. So we have nested object. Now, there's few ways how we can do this. We obviously can go back over here and say props.name. However, now we need to pass on the person. And then we're going to say props person name. And let's do the same thing with the job. Person and job. However, again, this is going to get really annoying really fast. And the reason for that is if we're going to have two more nested objects, what are we going to do then? Then every time we're going to need the simple property, we're just going to be spending, I don't know, 5 minutes on basically repeating. And God forbid we're going to mess up somewhere. So let's say that I'm going to say peron instead of person. And then I'm going to be looking for somewhere and it's not going to be showing. Now, obviously, I'm going to be given a bug. But this is something we would want to avoid. And this is really where the structuring comes into play. So instead of console logging it, because we have console logging it for already a long time, let's change this. And the syntax for the destructuring would be very simple. We're going to have const, so these would be constants. However, we can also write this with a let. It doesn't really matter however you would want. I mean, obviously, if you're not changing those values, then you can stay with a const. And then we're going to be pulling the values out. And let me just first say that this is going to be equal to a props. Then the next one is going to be the person. And now we would want to get the values. Now, what values I'm looking for? I'm looking for name, job, age, and company. And again, the reason, because it is nested within the props object, the key is person, but it's also an object. So I can write over here that I'm looking from the object these values. I need name, I need job, I need age, and I need company. So these 4 values. And then instead of using props.person.name, it's very simple. We're just going to write, you know what, this is going to be the name. Then next one is going to be job. And then let's do the same thing with a age and with a company. So let me delete this 1, 2. And instead of adding over here the comment that we had for the age, let me just select this line and delete this. And let's write that we would want a age. And again, they need to be matching. If you're pulling out, you need to make sure that you're getting the values that are in the object. And also when you're accessing them with your JavaScript. Obviously, these variables need to match. These are only variables, nothing less, nothing more. And we're accessing them with our JSX. So let's write company. And now once we save it, what do you think we're going to have? First of all, we're going to have the same result, but then this is more concise. You can see that we don't have any more of these long stretches of key value. Instead, this is something that we're going to later on learn is a state. Now, this is not a state, but we are creating a structure that will going to reflect state. And later on, we're going to learn what is state. But for now, what we need to understand is that the idea is to keep the information in a separate place. Then as we're rendering the person over here, and each person gets a separate value. And as you can see, it's much more easier for us to, let's say, add something or find a mistake because we haven't clogged up everything in one space. And again, this is the whole reasoning behind working with a components. And again, this was just a JavaScript feature. This is not actual React. Now we're using it in React, but this is really a JavaScript, just pulling out whatever values we want from the nested objects, or from objects for that matter. So if this wouldn't be nested, I could still do it the same way. It doesn't need to be nested. And this way I can also access them easier. So again, the whole idea is just to make our lives as easy as possible.